I am taking a short break from official freeware racing games. In this video, we are going to analyze a game called BP Championship Rally. Hi everyone, as always Patrick here. If you're already subscribed, make sure you turn on notifications, otherwise YouTube won't tell you if I posted anything. If you are new to the channel, make sure you watch until the very end and consider subscribing if you like it. Okay, BP Championship Rally. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any info about when the game was released and who made the game. If there's one thing that I know for a fact, it's the fact that this game was made in Adobe Shockwave. If you have watched my analysis videos before, you know that I usually start with the graphics. But this time I am going to start with something different. I am going to tell you what is this game about. The race is run over 3 stages: woods, snow and desert. In each stage, reach the checkpoint before the time runs out to continue or the race is over. You're competing in a WRC winning Ford Focus. Use the cursor keys to accelerate, brake and steer. Press C to toggle the default rear camera view to cockpit view. As you progress, watch your fuel and oil gauges. Pick up cans of BP Ultimate to refuel and clean your engine, and Castrol to replenish your oil. Finally, try not to do too much damage to the car, wreck it and the race is over. Personally, I think those instructions perfectly represent what the game is about and some basics about the game's mechanics. About the mechanics, more on that later. Now we can move on to that one part of the video where I usually start my analysis videos with the graphics. Well, it's a Shockwave game. Yeah, this looks like any other Shockwave game ever made. Yes, I know it's not fair to compare Shockwave games to AAA titles, but to be honest, for me graphically, this kinda reminds me of Colin McRae Rally 2.0. Think about it: low-res textures, sprites for trees, pictures for background, and so on and so forth. Yes, I know you can mess around with some graphical options, but they don't really change the graphics that much. Before I move on, there's one thing I have to say. This game has a 30 FPS cap, and unfortunately I have no idea if you can uncap the frame rate or not, so for now, unless someone finds out a workaround, you are stuck with 30 FPS. With graphics out of the way, now we can talk about the story. Well, I have already briefly talked about the story before, so in case you missed it, go back to the instructions part of the video. I guess I don't have anything more to say about both the graphics and the story. Can we talk about the gameplay instead? Thankfully, I have a lot more to say about the gameplay. Like I've said before in the instructions part of the video, you're competing in the WRC winning Ford Focus, and you are racing over 3 stages: woods, snow and the desert. What you're seeing right now is the woods level. All of those 3 levels are really short and they can be completed in about 2 minutes or less. All of those levels have at least one interesting set piece. The woods level has the bridge, the snow level has the mountain peak, and the 3rd level has a lot of inclines and declines. And when I say that, I mean lots and lots and lots of inclines and declines. About those inclines and declines, don't worry, you will see what I mean later in the video. Besides those cool set pieces, well, the tracks are the kind of tracks you would expect from a Shockwave racing game. Lots of straight lines, all variations of turns, and so on and so forth. With that out of the way, now I can say something more about the game's mechanics. There are only 3 mechanics that I am going to talk about in this video because the game has only 3 mechanics. The first one is the obvious one, the damage system. When you crash into something, you take damage. When the damage meter reaches 100, it's a game over and you have to start from level 1. Yeah, that mechanic is pretty self-explanatory, let's move on. The second mechanic I'm going to talk about is the checkpoint system. In this game you have a very limited time to complete a level. There are few checkpoints scattered around the map. Once you pass that checkpoint, you get 40 extra seconds to get to the end of the level. Oh sorry, I meant to say that every checkpoint in this game gives you extra 40 seconds to help you reach the finish line. Once the timer reaches 0, you have to start over from level 1. And now it's time to talk about the final mechanic, the fuel and the oil. When you drive, you lose fuel and oil, and you lose them really quickly. You can find 2 collectible cans in this game, the BP can and the Castrol can. The BP can refuels your car, while the Castrol can refuels your oil. But what happens when you don't have any fuel and oil left? When you run out of fuel, your car stops and you have to start over from level 1. If you run out of oil, you can still race, but your car gets damaged really quickly. You can stop this by picking up the Castrol can, assuming you can find one. You see, the cans aren't hard to find, but it goes a little bit like this. One time you get a BP can, one time you get a Castrol can, one time you get a BP can, another time you get a Castrol can, and so on and so forth. Oh, and of course, if you don't pick up the Castrol can in time, you have to start over from level 1. Now, do you see a pattern here? Yeah, when you fail in any of these levels, you start from level 1. Doesn't matter which level you're on, you can just simply start from the level you were previously in. You have to start from level 1. And you know what? I'm okay with this. This game is very short, you can complete it in about 15 minutes. So forcing the player to go back to level 1 every time they fail is not that much of a punishment. Now there are also some other mechanics that I didn't talk about, but do I really have to talk about them? Well, actually, you know what, I'm just going to talk about them, why not? So I guess it's time to talk about the minor mechanics, huh? Let's talk about them. First one, if you go the wrong way, the game sends you back to the spot you were previously in. It doesn't make you fail, it just teleports you back to where you previously were. Second minor mechanic, if you try to go off-road, well, you get a countdown, 3-second countdown to be exact, to get back to the beaten path. If you go too far, you immediately teleport back to where you were previously in, and if you just wait those 3 seconds, well, the game does the same thing. You can still get back to the beaten path without those 3 seconds, and by that I mean you can still get back in those 3 seconds. The countdown just makes it a bit easier for you. And the final minor mechanic, if you fall over, the game helps you get up and you can drive away. You can just, drive forward to the finish line. But not all the time. Yes, I am referring to that part of the video you saw earlier. That part being the part where I just flew away. This game also has glitches. I mean, every game has glitches, but they are the good kind of glitches. Those glitches don't break the game, they just make the game less polished. sadly. Also, the driving in this game feels heavy. When you turn, you can't turn quickly, you can only turn slowly. You can mess around with those settings in the options, but for the purpose of the video, I left those controls just so you can see what it feels like. And yes, those are the default controls and handling. Both controls and handling aren't bad, you just need some time to get used to them. Here's another thing, you've probably realized this by now, but you're not racing anyone in this game. You just try to get from point A to point B in the amount of time the game gives you. You know, just like in Nailed. You get a limited time, you can go through checkpoints that increase your time, and you try your best to reach the finish line. In conclusion, BP Championship Rally is a good game. I would say it's easy to play nowadays, but Shockwave doesn't exist anymore. Yes, I know there are workarounds for this, like for example Blue Maxima, Flashpoint and other websites that lets you download the game files, but officially Shockwave doesn't exist anymore. So if you want to play the game nowadays, you have to use those workarounds. Regardless, BP Championship Rally is a good game. A bit glitchy, but those glitches don't break the game. But that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to say in this analysis video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Just